What's up, guys? What's up? Welcome to the first episode of... Actually, I don't think I've got a title for this yet. Me analyzing subscriber replays for you guys. Euthemic calls them private lessons. Hasem has a gimmick and calls to them. Is it Imba or do I suck? I call them... fucking, I don't know. We'll see later on. Maybe it doesn't even have a name. I'm just gonna analyze your replays. Okay, there we go. There we go. There we go. Guys... This game was sent in by Mulan. He is a 5.6, 5.7k Protoss, and in this game he is playing versus Strange 6.3k. And this game we will find out what has happened. To begin with, real quick, I wanna set some things straight about PvP that are important for this specific game, and that is 1. Immortals suck. Do not build them. 2. Blink Stalkers win against everything if you do it right. And 3. Immortals really do suck. Please don't build them. And the only composition you can go for is Blink Stalkers. So 3 is just a mix of both. Okay, 3 is just both. Once again. Okay, there we go. That is very important to keep in mind when you're going through this replay and seeing what happens. So Mulan opens up with the 2 gate. Strange opens up with the 2 gate. Nothing special going on so far, right? Everything pretty normal, except for, of course, Strange not doing the wall off because it's Strange. Look, Strange does strange things. Okay, that's just how it is. Mulan going for the pylon, seeing it's a Stalker Sentry, and guys, Stalker Sentry is just kind of a bad opening. Because the moment you see a Stalker Sentry, you can just go as greedy as you can. Like, the moment you see Stalker Sentries, it's like, for the next fucking 30 minutes, you don't have to worry about a thing. Right? Mulan here doesn't really use that, though, is what I'm noticing. Like, he doesn't use his chrono boosts, even though he knows, or should know, that his opponent can't do anything against him right now. Like, the moment you see Stalker Sentry opener, you can go ham on your chrono boost on the probes, because as you can see, Strange isn't doing that. Strange instead is scouting, and I think the moment he sees what his opponent is doing, he will chrono boost, right? He will chrono boost the Warpism, actually. That's interesting. So Mulan is walking out with the 2 adepts, harassing. Here's another problem, right? If you go adepts, let's see how much damage these adepts do, right? Like, they shouldn't really do damage. As you can see, they kill 1 sentry, which probably could have been saved. Actually, it could have probably killed a probe, and the guy gets out. That was actually worth it, but in my opinion, now it's not worth it anymore. In my opinion, every adept you build, well, every adept you build isn't a Stalker, right? So you go Twilight, you go Forge, that is good. You chrono boost your gateways. Why though? Why would you chrono boost your gateways? Why would you chrono boost your gateways when you can chrono boost your economy instead? Like, there's no reason to chrono boost the gateways here. Like, you already, because here's the thing. So one thing I often talk about in my stream in PvP is like just building a lot of Blink Stalkers and killing your opponent if they build adepts. Or like if they build a robot. It's called the buffoon build. You go 3 gateway, maybe with a forge, probably with a forge. You don't want to go all in. Then you just grow Blink Stalkers and blink on your opponent. Like 70% of the time it will work out. Right? It's all about the Stalker count. The problem is the moment you build 2 adepts, those 2 adepts aren't Stalkers, right? So in that moment, you can't really work as well anymore with the army advantage of getting more Stalkers, right? So in that moment, why would you chrono boost your gateways compared to probes? Like, if you look at the probe count, for example, like Mulan right here is slightly ahead still because Strange is going for Glaives push. At least he's going Glaives, but he's also going Archons. And it's kind of distracting, really. It's kind of distracting, but what I would argue is that, well, I mean, charge slots kind of suck nowadays. So I can totally see a world where adepts make sense. And as you can also see, Strange is going for 3 Immortals and Archons. So this is like the very classical 2017 Immortal Archon push. With adepts instead of charge slots, which... As I said, like, charge slots are kind of bad now, so it kind of makes sense. And this is interesting, right? Because we talked about this. Immortals and Archons kind of suck, is what I said at the beginning of the game, right? Mulan here has Blink Stalkers and Disruptors, which as I said earlier, is the composition to kind of go for. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens, and then go back. Strange moves out, kills to the third base. Looking at the prop count, Moon is still ahead, but well, Strange has his own third base on the way. So, wait, hold up. Is Strange now ahead? Wait, but holy hit, you might ask. You said Disruptors and Stalkers is the way to go, but Strange built Adepts, Immortals, Archons, everything you said you shouldn't go for. How did he get the third base? Why did he get the third base, holy hit? Why would you lie to us? Look, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Let's go back. Let's go back a few seconds. Let's go back a few seconds, right? You see Strange moving out, right? You see Strange moving out. And the thing with these move outs is that everything that happened before this move out will lead to this move out working, right? So let's go through what happened. First of all, Mulan chrono boosted his gateways, which means less eco, which means less units later on, right? Because the earlier you get eco, the more units you will have later on. Great, first point. Second point, Mulan has built 2 adepts that didn't really do damage, which could have been 2 stalkers because of the warping mechanic. Okay, that's already like not that many stalkers. So right now we've got 13 stalkers versus 3 immortals, 2 archons, 10 adepts. And as much as I hate immortals, this is going to be a tricky fight because the archon is going to break the force fields. Otherwise, like usually a lot of times people move out with immortals and stalkers, or like immortals and something, and then you just kind of force fit them. And then you take good fights, right? So that's already not a good thing. Then next up, Mulan's got 3 cannons here, which is 450 minutes, which could be stalkers, but which could also be earlier gateways. And these cannons won't do anything in the fight. Those cannons are not at the third base. So the third base doesn't really do anything. And then I think fourthly, the biggest point actually, the army is out of position. Like if this army would be here in position set up, that would mean Strange couldn't couldn't move in as easily. Strange also has only 1 Archon. So force feeds still are possible if you're in position. If you're in position, you could force feed this. And Mulan still has Disruptor. So he can get 1 lucky hit off. But you can't really rely on 1 Disruptor. So the problem right now is that Mulan has too little in the wrong position. And too little because of the cannons and because of the lack of weapons. So imagine these 3 cannons being, let's say, 3 shield batteries in this position right here. Because here's the thing, why adepts suck and charge shots suck compared to stalkers is because they don't do shit versus shield batteries. They just kind of don't. Like you overcharge a shield battery and you're good to go, done. You survived. You're good. You're good. So that's a big thing, right? That's a big fucking thing. And these shield batteries are not in position though. They're not even being built, and those are cannons. So instead of cannons, you go shield batteries and maybe 1 or 2 cannons if you have the minerals for one. I mean, building the cannons most likely is something like, oh shit, I fucked up my macro anyways. In most cases that's the case. And then you would survive this. Likely, it's still about execution, especially with a second Archon. It's still about execution. But Mulan does the smart thing here, right? Mulan does the smart thing here. He is behind now. Definitely behind. He does the smart thing. He doesn't try to defend. Because he knows he can't. He gets some adepts. Good. Nice. Great. Tries to retake the third base. Strange checks how much his opponent has. Chase into the mineral line. Killing some probes. But because of that, getting the army out of position. And being able to kill the third base once again. If he would go for it. He's going for it now. And this means Strange is just completely ahead. That pylon is out of position. Strange kills even more now. Even more probes. So at this point, Mulan is pretty dead. Now Strange does the safe thing. And goes back with his army. Like he's massively ahead. But Disruptors can still ruin your day. Mulan went for DTs in the meantime. Which is another factor. If you go DTs and Disruptors on 2 base, that is a lot of tech. Like a lot of tech. Unless you manage to kill the Observer, those DTs will be tricky. Basically, the idea is you go either Disruptors or you go DTs if you want to survive and your opponent and you expect your opponent is attacking you. Everything else is very greedy. It's still possible and has its advantages, like DTs are really good when you get 10 and 20 of them and like just snipe bases. And disruptors, we don't have to talk about disruptors being like really good. Because of course they are. And the more disruptors you have, the better life is. Really, the better life is. So getting both is really greedy but possible. Unless your opponent is on even ground with you and attacks you. Right, so Mullen gets some props here and moves out, which is an I don't think a bad decision, right? Like you need to do something, and pressuring is a good way to do something. On the other hand, though, if you have got disruptors and your opponent doesn't have disruptors, you don't really have to worry about a thing, right? Because you can't really build phoenixes into your stalkers that easily, unless he is ahead, which in this case he is. So it's a tricky decision. Mullen is kind of putting it on one card, hoping that he's gonna catch Strange off guard because he's moving his army for the DTs, which makes a lot of sense. Mullen blinks in to the probes, which makes a lot of sense. It's really smart, kills a lot of probes, and now he should disengage, right? Disengaging now would be amazing. However, the problem is he went so far with the rest of his army. Like blink stalkers can blink in and blink out, no worries. But if the rest of the army catches up and is in like this position, you suddenly can't get out anymore. It's really tricky to get out suddenly. So he gets one Zell with this disruptor hit, he gets a decent disruptor on the Immortals, and I would argue Mullen can fight this. So he does. Oh, but not that much. Not that much, Mullen, not that much, especially with the shield battery. So he goes up, but I respect that. Blink Stalkers are really strong, and I want you guys, if you go and I want you guys to believe in your Blink Stalkers. More than you probably should, so I respect that. In the meantime, though, here's the problem with that. Like, there's a big problem, and one big thing you have to understand about Blink Stalkers. Blink Stalkers, similarly to let me follow these guys real quick. Blink Stalkers, similarly to Disruptors and Blink DTs, they have to snowball. You have to have a certain amount to make them worth it. So every time you trade with them, you have to be very careful of not losing Blink Stalkers, because this happens, right? And you do damage. You might do damage. You might kill some Phoenixes. Actually, it might not actually do damage here. That's a little bit dangerous, a little bit scary. He blinks out, gets some probes. But look at how few Stalkers he now has. It's only 12 Stalkers versus 3 Immortals. That's not good. 11 Stalkers don't kill Phoenixes anymore. I don't actually know how many Blink Stalkers one-shot Phoenixes on plus, I'm guessing +2, yes. I don't actually know that on top of my head. I should know that. But I don't actually have to, because usually I just build Blink Stalkers and I know not to overtrade. But that is the problem, right? So Mullen is not behind anymore in probes, actually. Like, this is really good. And the supply is pretty even. Like, considering what happened in the early game, he played this really well. He gets Static D, which is also very nice. But remember when I said Stalkers beat everything, and Immortals and Archons are like really kind of, bad? It only works when, again, you snowball, and 16 Stalkers right now are not snowballing. And the problem is, while Mullen's economy is pretty decent, he's only in 2.5 base economy, even though this base is even getting mined out. So he can't snowball anymore on his economy. Like, he got himself into a position where he's on even economy, kind of, while having lost a lot that he can't replenish because he's not on a high economy. So like, it doesn't even matter that you're on even economy, you kind of have to be on high economy and then even economy for it to work out, which is easily doable usually, unless you trade your Stalkers like that. Right, so he keeps building up his Disruptor count, he keeps building up his Stalker count, which is the way to go. He's now adding in Colossi, which I don't agree with at all, because the problem is Colossi are hard counterable. Like, the moment you see, like, the moment you're in a good economic position as a Protoss and your opponent goes Colossi, and you like kind of have traded and nothing snowballing, and you know your opponent can't move out and kill you because you traded and he traded his Stalkers, so he doesn't have the snowbally army of Stalkers, you just build Tempest. Or like something Skytos related, right? Because Chaos don't do shit against that. Now, once again, Mullen's army is not that bad. He's got 5 Disruptors. That's a lot of Phoenixes though. And again, as I mentioned, that's not a large amount of Stalkers at all. Or High Templars. He blinks in position. but he can't, like, he was way out of position for this fight to happen once again, so he's gonna lose the base once again. Shoots the disruptor shot, which doesn't connect, so the disruptors are almost always shot a little bit too early in this game. So I think, from a player's perspective, outside of game knowledge, the two main things that happened here are positioning and also disruptor shots. So like the three main things happening in general in this game is always out of position, almost always out of position, disruptor shots never really connecting as well as you could, and 3, trading with your stalkers in ways you shouldn't. Like, he's still getting more stalkers, and his supply isn't that bad. His supply isn't that bad, but at this moment, like, Strange's supply is ahead. For some reason, look, here's the thing. Strange isn't building props either. Like, Strange could easily be building props and getting up to 70, 80 prop economy and be ahead. Easily. I'm kind of mad at that he isn't doing that, right? Now Mullen's getting DTs, and 8 DTs is like a decent amount. But he doesn't have DT Blink, so he can't really do much with them. Like, you need a certain amount of DTs and DT Blink, which he's now getting. But at this point, Strange is going to hit 200 supply earlier, and the 200 supply of army of Mullen is just kind of there. Like, right now it's still good, if you're in position. Which, once again, he isn't. He's still way out of position. And at some point, it just becomes a math game, really. Like, he takes a kind of bad fight here, and versus Stalker Colossus, Immortals are good. Versus Stalker Colossus, Immortals are good. Stalker Colossus Archon. But as you can see, not that good. Like, Mullen is still taking a good fight, like a decent fight, which would work out really well if he wasn't super far behind now, because he doesn't have a 4th base mining from, so he basically is on 2 base economy because of not even 2 base economy, because this is empty. This is half empty, so 1 half base, and this is a full base, so like 1 base, half a base, and then quarter a base. That's bad. Meanwhile, his opponent, let's ignore the DTs for a moment, his opponent is on this base kind of not really, like he could be, and half a base and quarter a base. So the DTs do their stuff, as DTs do. Not quite good enough. He should have moved out with the DTs after the initial damage. But it's quite hard to figure out. Adepts are like surprisingly good against DTs, right? And especially with glaives, that's really interesting to see. But now, Strange just kind of out-macroed him. Because again, one key problem with a Stalker Disruptor is that you need a crucial amount, and if you don't have that crucial amount, you just kind of die. So like, I keep saying Immortals and Archons are kind of bad. In a perfect game, they are kind of bad, in my opinion. But as you can see, they can still trade. It can still work. You can also see how, like, in an ideal world, Mullen should win all of his fights. But he doesn't because he's out of position, and now he doesn't because look at the supply. And this is the truest moment of look at the supply. The truest fucking moment. Because now, Strange is actually going for carriers. Which, if your opponent goes carriers versus you, you know you fucked up. You know you fucked up. Because, like, so, the ideal late game army is Blink Stalker, Tempest, Disruptor, which sounds really weird, right? But it makes sense if you think about it. And the thing about that is Tempest just kind of beat carriers. Like, we don't have to talk about that. The only thing that I'm not sure about, because we just got a new patch, is how do Void Rays play into this? Like, Void Rays are kind of good, aren't they? Like, maybe not. Void Rays versus Tempest, I don't know. Archons though, I don't know. But Archons versus Disruptor, oh, this is tricky. But the problem is, all of that doesn't matter if your opponent is massively ahead. He could be even more ahead, that's important. He could be even more ahead. And gets Carrier Phoenix Void Ray, while you have Colossi in your army. And you're building more Colossi, but because you kind of have to, but not really. Look, Colossi cost 300, 200. A Disruptor costs 150, 150. If you play versus Phoenix, most of the time, just get more Disruptors if you're in a decent position. Of course, in this game, as we talked about earlier, everything happened because that 3rd base was sniped, and he wasn't in a good position anymore. That's PvP. PvP is very free flow, but the moment you're not in a good position anymore, shit gets tricky. Very tricky. And you have to be very conservative then. And he never used, basically what happened in this game is the tools he was going for, because this engagement is gonna happen, the tools he was going for were never really used. He never really used his blink DTs, except for that one moment, which worked out fine, which worked out well. He never really used his disruptors because he was out of position. He never used his stalker advantage in a way that makes sense, because instead of like keeping the advantage and like trying to trade, he went in and lost the stalkers, and with that losing the advantage and losing stalkers for like some probes. And there was never like this strong advantage to go, like never the big disruptor count that you can't live with phoenixes anymore, never the big stalker count that you just can't fight into on shield batteries, because that's the idea, right? Like stalkers just survive everything on the shield batteries against everything, really. Like if you get enough shield batteries, instead a lot of cannons were built. So none of the advantages were used, and there's just constantly those problems that I've already talked about. So to summarize the video, which is now 21 minutes long, interesting. This is my first time, guys. This is my first time doing this for YouTube. It's one, don't outtrade your stalkers. If you can do free damage, do free damage, but don't outtrade your stalkers unless your opponent is also going stalkers and you're gonna take good trades. Two, what was two? Be in position with your army. Like, very simple, like it sounds simple, but it's hard to do, but like be in position with the army to not lose your bases. 3, build shield batteries instead of cannons. 4, what was I talking about? 4, don't get far behind. Don't get behind, and then, but rather 4, use your advantages. Use the tools you're going for. Use your blink DTs. But use them in a way that makes sense, right? In the way that like 10 to 20 DTs, don't throw them away. Here's a final tip for you guys. Dead units don't pressure well. Units that are alive pressure way better than units that die while killing probes. Because then your opponent has to be like, oh shit, those units are still alive. I have to be careful. If those die, your opponent is going to be like, oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I lost probes, but like those units are dead. I don't have to care anymore. Like nothing's gonna happen now, unless you kill enough probes. But that's kind of luck based, and especially with stalkers. Stalkers are just kind of bad at killing probes, really. So guys, this is going to be it for the first episode of me analyzing Twitch subscriber replays. I hope you enjoyed it. This is going to be, I'm gonna upload this today on Thursday. And this is going to be kind of an experiment. To see where this is gonna go. I'm gonna take in subscriber replays from now on. I'm gonna find a way to like an official like document or something for you guys to like fill in, like to tell me what happened. I'm not sure how exactly I'm gonna do that yet. But if you enjoyed the content, I'm gonna keep you guys up to date on my stream and on Discord about that. If you guys enjoyed the content, feel free to like, share, subscribe. You know, the usual stuff. And I stream every day, Monday to Friday, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. CST on Twitch. And everything else important is linked down below. My throat is starting to hurt. I've been talking nonstop for 23 minutes. Guys, take care. Enjoy the rest of the week. Peace.